All right, I'm back with my first video in a long time, going to make myself a bedroom dresser. And you're looking at all the wood I picked up for the exterior of said dresser. Gonna get started putting some pieces together and we'll come back in a bit. All right, so this is going to be the top surface of my dresser. I have chosen a piece of laminated Project Pine. I picked this up at Lowe's. I chose this because usually you would do a hardwood to make furniture out of, but I'm particular to pine because I like the way that stain absorbs it. Plus this laminated feature, all these different panels are going to absorb the stain in a different fashion. So that's going to really make the board pop, especially when you coat it with some polyurethane. So the size it comes out of the package is, there you go, 20 inches wide by 72 long, 3/4 thick. I'm going to rip it down because I need 1 inch off the back side of this, and it's going to be a little shorter for my purposes. So I'm going to get to that, and I will be back in a bit. Now, as I was measuring which side of this top to rip down to 19 inches, I discovered that this was not actually put together square. This is a little wider here and narrows down here. So it goes from about 1 inch thickness at that end to approximately 1.25 inches at this end. So it's good that I caught that. I like imperfections in my project, but the one thing that is important, if I'm trying to rip down 7/8 of an inch, this is already just a hair under 7/8 of an inch, which means I would be starting on the board next to it. And at some point, as I go down to the next end, as this board widens, I would be cutting through the part that's laminated, the two surfaces. I'd like to avoid that since I had the choice, and I'm going to rip down this side, and we'll get to that right now. So now I've come to the hard part of where the drawer hardware is going to attach to the frame of the dresser. To do this, I have done some math and calculated where the front fascia is between the drawer openings, and so on and so forth. As you can see, it's a little trial and error backing into the math. So with those numbers, I'm going to create a series of lines along the inside of the frame here. This is the center wall of my dresser, and so I am going to first establish where the drawer openings are going to be, and then I'm going to sink some screws between the left and right sides of what will be the center. So and I also want to know where the drawer openings are, so that way when I sink these screws between these two pieces of wood, they're not going to compete for space with where the actual drawer hardware is going to go. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and get started on this, and this should have a whole bunch of lines on it by the time that I get done with it. So I'll come back to you in a bit. So I now have all the pieces cut for the frame exterior of my bedroom dresser. These are all the little fascia pieces. Made some notations for myself as to where they go, just depending on the cut. And what I'm going to do now is hit all of these with some 60 grit and maybe some 100 grit sandpaper to take off all the rough edges. And that's going to be it for a bit. I'm going to build the entire exterior, stain it, finish it, and then I'm going to come back and do all the drawers to go into it. So we're moving along here. All right. Okay, so to catch you up, I have now attached the hardware to the inside of the frame of my dresser. So you see the drawer tracks, and these are for some fascia pieces that are going to go on both sides. As you can see, this is one side of one end of the dresser. This is the middle of the dresser, and then this is the other side of the dresser. Okay. All nice and finished now. So I used a dark walnut stain from the company Varathane. Picked it up at Home Depot, and then that was my base coat. Sanded that with 220, and I came back over it since it's not a table, coffee table, dining table. Not going to be placing any drinks on it. I just came back over it with just a neutral or what they call natural stain from Minwax, and so it doesn't have any polyurethane on it. And because it was sanded nice and smooth, as you can see in the sunlight here, it's got a little bit of a satin finish, which I really like, and it really makes the grain and the stain pop, and I'm really happy about that. And just a note on some things that you can never plan for. This is the actual surface, the top of my dresser. And what had happened, because the top is made out of solid pine, we had some humidity here overnight. No rain, but it was a little moist overnight, and so it started to cup. The surface of it. The stain side actually was doing that, so I have corrected it with some weight and some heat from the sunlight. The sun has gone down here, so I'm going to see what it looks like when I take these bricks off. I'm not going to put any of this together because I want to see what's going to happen with this overnight. I'm going to put it inside so moisture won't be an issue anymore, and we will pick this up in a bit. So as you can see, the frame has been put together. I've got my front little fascia pieces on again. These are not super structural, but they are meant to obscure the space between the drawers. Speaking of the drawers, I did one draw without putting the face on. I wanted to see how well I got this measured, reading the instructions on the drawer hardware, the sliders. And it turns out, it looks like I know what I'm doing. So I built one drawer because I want to make sure I got all my cuts right. And I got them spot on. And so this goes in and out effortlessly. It's pretty damn good. I'm pretty pleased with myself. I've got the measurements right. I got the clearance right on the sides. There's no jamming. It does not... It touches the back a little bit. I am okay with that. The fact of the matter is when I attach the face of the drawer to these rails on the drawer cart, if you will, it's going to stop on the fascia here. So it's going to overlap the front. I'm not worried about it touching on the back. It should come to a stop right about there and won't continue on. Either way, that's unfinished wood back there, and then it's empty back there. So I'm extremely happy with the results, with my measurements, and now that I have built my my test model of my drawer, everything looks good, and I'm going to build the other 9. So we will be back with that, and I'll show you how I put the drawer together. Okay, so I'm going to give you the walk around on how I did my drawers, having known that they actually work right in the dresser frame. So everything is just mechanically fastened, no fancy dovetailing, just 2 screws in the side, and the base of the drawer is about a 1/4 inch plywood, maybe 3/8. It didn't matter to me. I just wanted something a little firmer than MDF or some other particle board. Here's a tip. It turns out I didn't need it, but when I put the hardware on, I wasn't sure if there were adjustments that were going to be made, so I didn't want to get close to the I didn't want to drill anywhere near where I thought I was going to need to drill if I had to drill again. So I used different holes. As you can see, there's different mounting holes for the applications of the drawer hardware, the slider hardware. I actually did some preliminary drills and screwed in the sliding track on there. However, it turned out I hit the nail on the head the first go around, and then I used the actual manufacturer recommended screw holes. So as you can see, there's some oblong ones that go this way and then this way, and it turned out I didn't need those at all. So I got it right the first time. Very happy about it. Just another tip, this is something I've just found. The hardware, the screws that came with the sliding tracks, not the best metal used. I actually was using an impact screw gun. This is only a 12-volt screw gun. When I sank these earlier in the project, it turned out that the heads broke off when the impact came into effect, and I hit it a couple of times with the impact gun, and the heads broke right off. In my personal experience, I want to just shoot out a recommendation. Found these at Home Depot. These are Spax brand construction screws. Same length, they come in variable other lengths, and a much better quality than what came with the hardware. So as you can see, or maybe not see, it does say Spax along the top of that. Those are the ones that I'm using, because when I load this down with clothes and it's getting continual use, I don't want to have to worry about these heads of the original manufacturer breaking off, and then I gotta do the drawer all over again. So that's just a fun little tip, and I will be back a little bit later in the project. So it seems that you can plan out your woodworking project as best you can, calculate all the wood you need, and that way you have a minimal amount of waste, and sometimes life throws a wild card at you. My neighbor, who parks in the spot right next to mine, actually thought that to get in and out of her spot, she felt that she needed to go through my spot, and she had actually run over one of my fascia pieces to the drawers and clipped the end off of it. So yeah, that's just one of those things you just can't plan for. Like, who would have thought that your woodworking project would not be safe within the confines of your own working space? So I had planned, I have a minimal amount of waste from the lumber that I had bought, but I had to go buy a whole new piece of wood, and I have now sanded it. I have routed a grip edge on it, and now I am getting ready to stain it. So this has cost me a good couple of days, because you can cut wood in an hour, but you can't make stain dry instantaneously. So this is just one of those things that when you're doing a woodworking project in a finite amount of real estate, you have to deal with some things that you just can't anticipate. So word to the wise. I shall carry on, and I will update you momentarily. Well, here we are. The project is finished, and it is looking very much as I envisioned when I first drew up some sketches. Within the same footprint, I now probably have, without doing the exact math, I have approximately 40% more drawer capacity. I had a 6-drawer dresser, and these drawers are deeper, and now my shirts do not catch on the bottom of the the framework here, and I have plenty more room to work. All the drawers work fantastically. And as I'm very proud of myself, the way that the drawer comes back in on itself means that I mounted the hardware correctly, and I couldn't be more pleased. So that's going to do it for me, and good luck on your own project.